Hey guys, it's Mike G back here with Logical Raptors Fanatic. We're going to take a look at some of, well, I have an interesting idea, I guess, like something I might be seeing that Masai's looking at, maybe trying to use and see where it goes and what kind of like limitations it has and see how ready each guy is kind of to play the role, I think. It's going to be interesting, obviously, like how all this kind of works out because, as you can see in our depth chart, we have Fred VanVleet at point guard, we have Malachi Flynn at point guard, and Delano Banton at point guard, which is kind of fine. But I would even maybe say, like, Doughton can kind of is more of a combo guard, so he's like kind of in both camps, I think. And Fred, he kind of goes in both camps too. So like, there are a couple guys here that I feel could play both positions. I think Delano and Flynn are more just point guards. I don't think they have that great shooting element yet, and still need to. Well, Flynn needs to work on his consistency, and Ben needs to work on his whole how he generates shots in the half court. I think he kind of is so fast, he gets himself into a certain position and kind of can't read the options and kind of gets stuck and has to kind of back out and kind of reset. And then he's looking for a hole to penetrate, and they're not, and they usually like shadow close all the holes for him. So he's kind of like going back and forth along the 3 point line. So obviously, with a shot from 3 point, that point where he kind of resets back out, he has another option if they start sealing off kind of the paint area. I want to talk about, yeah, I guess Gary right now. I think Gary is in a interesting predicament because I think there's a lot of forwards here, both starter quality forwards right here, and obviously starter quality forwards because these guys are our main guys. We're going to obviously start them no matter what. So I think this is where everything gets interesting, right? Last year, our premium top side lineup was OG in the Chris Boucher position here, kind of just to make it easy. I know he wasn't playing center, but we'll just say that for now. And then we would have Chris and Achua come off the bench with Banton sometimes. And that was kind of when we were fully healthy. We kind of rolled that out. And I think it worked fairly well. Like the energy picked up immediately in the first quarter and kind of really got us going into our plays and into our defensive sets. We were really got going, but I think some of the playmaking fell off when we kind of subbed in those three guys. So with Thaddeus Young kind of to anchor in now, maybe coming in with Chris Boucher, Thaddeus, and maybe Gary Trent and have Precious starting, that bench rotation can really put up some buckets, I think. Some Thaddeus playmaking with some Gary Trent Jr. shooting, and then Chris Boucher's around the rim getting rebounds, all that kind of stuff. And I think that's probably the way Nick might go. And then obviously Otto Porter Jr. is obviously in that bench group right there with them three. So it's a really interesting lineup. I don't think Josh Jackson's up there. I don't think DJ Wilson's up there. I think Juancho is probably going to slide into here, and we're going to play him as a small forward or maybe as a center. I don't think I think the power forward position's kind of set with Pascal Siakam and Chris Boucher and kind of Otto Porter Jr. That rotation's pretty solid, not going to lie. And so I think the openings are at small forward where we have Scotty, OG, and then Thaddeus as our top three guys for small forward, I think. And then obviously each guy can kind of spill out to shooting guard or center and be like a full big lineup. I think Scotty flips everywhere, so he actually can fill the gap in any lineup, I think. So it's really interesting how Nick Nurse is going to have a lot of pieces this year. But I think I want to talk about now this young kind of bench mob, like maybe secret kind of plan. He wants to see the metrics, get some data on what this looks like, but without going up against the elite competition right now. I think it's just a concept. We're looking at it, but this is the lineup I think that is really going to dictate whether we go forward with the full 6'9" and not have a real center, or kind of if we completely go in this direction. This is the direction I feel that has always been on kind of Masai's mind. It's not a complete 6'9" kind of lineup. It's not a complete 6'8" lineup. It's more like a big sized lineup, but could still match up and have variance to it. So we have different sized positions at the point guard, I feel, and the shooting guard. We could have big or small guys there. And we always have length and size at small forward and power forward and center. But then we have another option of going for an extra tall center that can't get abused on switches, that's able to keep up with perimeter guarding. Because I think in the playoffs, that's what you do. You target the center in pick and roll actions, you target them out, bring them out to the perimeter, kind of dribble drive game, make them drop, and then you got room for like a mid range. And that's how most kind of scoring is done in the playoffs. You abuse the center, make him drop, and then use that space to shoot. And those guys that can shoot the mid range get a lot of points and get a lot of play from that. Because I think the 3-point line's being guarded heavy, the rim's being guarded heavy, but the center can be abused on both the perimeter and kind of in the mid range. So we need a guy that has quick feet, that's able to keep up. 7-footers that are that fast and kind of nimble like that are rare. So I think that's why I think everyone's kind of really big on Kolokolo, because he's shown some of those skills and maybe has the ability to kind of play that position for us. So I think this year could be really interesting to see a lineup of Kolokolo. Well, I'll start with the one, I guess. So Banton, Champagny at shooting guard. Then we have Scotty at small forward, Precious at power forward, and Koloko. And that whole lineup is actually age 22, except for Champagny, which is 21, and Precious, which is 23. So it's a really interesting, young, crazy lineup. And I think it has the makings to be a really interesting set. Like, we push Kolokolo, Scotty Barnes, and Champagny on the offensive glass, taking everything that comes off the glass. But then we have Banton and Precious kind of hedging back. Precious obviously on the main weapon, looking for any breakout or anything. Banton kind of making sure that there's not 2-on-1s or anything like that on Precious. And I think like defensive rebounding, they all have height, size, length. They can all pick up that. And I think defensively, they're all kind of really switchable. Really switchable. Like, Delano can kind of like rim protect a bit. He's shown ability to block shots and do a whole bunch of other things. Champagny's shown an ability to be kind of like that Rondé Hollis Jefferson, but better. He's shown a better ability to shoot. Obviously, he's younger, but he's that like new hustle man. So, yeah, like hustle man like old school kind of like the way Hustle Jefferson was, but like he's gonna have a better three. And then Scotty's obviously gonna connect everything and be the guy. Him and Ben kind of playmaking, doing a lot of the shot creation work. And I think like him, Ben, Barnes, and Koloko in the pick and roll is gonna look lethal, lethal. Precious too. Precious can get in the pick and roll a bit too. I see that for him, and I think like wow, just that whole lineup like, and then have Precious and Koloko kind of like deep as defensive anchors in the paint, and then have Barnes and kind of Banton kind of hovering around, and then have Champagny as like the lead pressure guard. So we have that kind of great pressure zone defense we could build around these three, so they won't get exposed as much on the one-on-ones. I think it's a really interesting lineup, like something that if we see good metrics from it, we could probably see Masai moving in that direction more, and that means Flynn's days are completely numbered. I think Trent gets pushed out. There's going to be a lot of decisions maybe off this one lineup that could kind of almost maybe decide the fate of the direction of this team, kind of like just not like officially, but just like to see early indicators to see what kind of metrics we're working with when we have that kind of setup going with all guys that are lengthy, have great attributes that kind of fit together. I think Delano kind of pushing the ball up in speed, looking for weaknesses, and then kind of Scotty trailing, having options, being able to take the ball or kind of make a play in the post or pass it out, start rearranging guys and kind of maybe get a pick and roll with Cloco or Champagny in the corner hitting a three off a Scotty drive, Precious in the other corner hitting a three off a Scotty drive or the Banton drive, or Coloco kind of in the corner, maybe trying his three. I saw a shot. His shot, it's better than Chris's. He has a natural shot form. So I think ultimately it's more to work with, I think, regarding shooting to get a more consistent kind of shooter. I think Coloco can be like a taller, better Chris Boucher, and kind of have that same energy, kind of same speed. Well, I think Coloco might be a little bit faster than Chris, but Chris can still keep up with kind of the power forwards and small forward guys and kind of not get too abused on the perimeter. But I think ultimately his size held him back, like his height. I think really it's just it's about height sometimes, and I think he just if he was like a couple inches taller, he'd definitely be like wow, he could have made tons of money. But unfortunately, yeah, we are who we are. And I think Chris is still has a great role in this team. I think his role is ultimately to be a mentor to help Coloco. So we got Coloco for 3 years on a rookie contract, and we got Chris Boucher on a 3 year contract, and we see if he can kind of like so if Coloco is ready by year two, then we look to maybe trade Chris Boucher in the third year, where he's only making 10 million, so that's like an easier salary to kind of put in, and it would definitely be a more valuable piece to someone if he's making less and kind of still producing the same kind of what he does with his effort, rebounds, kind of like not everything is being shown on the stat sheet now what he's doing because he's taking charges. He's doing a lot of different things. So it's really interesting the way that he's being used now, like a little bit different from what it was before, because I think we were looking at him as more of like a scoring power forward like Pascal Siakam. But then I think obviously the start of last year kind of readjusted expectations, and he needed to find a role within this new team. And I think he did really well. did a lot for us in that one last game in the playoffs, man. Wow. I'm just really excited. I just hope Chris still continues to put that work in, continue to climb the ladder, as Nick Nurse says. But I think, and there's something, a little hint here, drop. I'm going to go into something, but I think he's a mentor for Koloko to teach him our Raptors ways. And there's another part for it. You're going to have to wait for it. It's a little sneak preview. But obviously, we went through everyone's contracts in this kind of everyone's contracts here, right? And I think Koloko, we didn't get a number yet, but I think ultimately his number is in tandem with Boucher's, and kind of position is in tandem with that. So when we need Koloko to kind of step up, that's where his kind of position and money will come from a bit. But obviously, we saw the numbers with Scotty, so we have to be careful all around. But this could be an interesting young gun lineup that really decides kind of the direction, I think, of how we build out the center position on our team. And maybe some of the point guard, shooting guard stuff. But I think we've seen some of that already with Scotty Barnes and Pascal Siakam starting at guards. We've already seen kind of some of those metrics. I think they want to see like a different mold type of players at that position, like Delano Ben and Champagny playing guard, to see how that works. I think they want Champagny more as like a better rebounding Danny Green, and then Banton uh, just like a more lengthier, faster, just Pat McCaw, I think. Just like more aggressive offensively than Pat McCaw, but they want him to be as defensively sound as Pat McCaw. I think that's what they're looking at from the PG position, at least point guard, and then rotating Scotty in and out. Because Scotty's obviously could play any position. I think ultimately in the championship team, Scotty would be point guard, but we could have Delano Ben as a six man, kind of like, you know what I mean, Van Vliet's role, what it was. If he shows that he can hit his threes, kind of be effective in the mid range, I think he has a real spot on this team. Champagny, I think, is more of a question mark. Obviously, Precious is kind of semi locked into us permanently. And Scotty Barnes is just locked. There is no question. He's not going anywhere. No trade, I don't think, is going to be sufficient for him, unless it's Giannis or something. So that's completely off the table for me, I think, at least for now. We'll see. And then Koloko is an interesting prospect. He still needs time to work on his IQ and in his post play. I think he can get pulled away from the play he's supposed to be guarding right now. Or he's maybe being told to put an effort into guarding the perimeter a lot, get your feet going, start learning how these guards kind of try to slip you and do stuff to you. That possession on Harden was pretty interesting and cool. Showed a great like ability to kind of lower his center of gravity really low and get his legs kind of almost like coming out the back a bit. You saw how low he got. That's really important, I think, for centers, because they can get pushed off if their center of gravity is a lot higher and they're not really heavy. And I think him being a former soccer player has him having great balance. That's all balance. Being able to do that, that's being able to balance with your freaking plant foot like far out. Because the guy could slip you because he could take pressure off and then you kind of fall on your butt. So it's about balance. You got to be able to push on that. And I think that's important for centers playing on the perimeter, because it stops the guard from driving, being able to just drive through the center and kind of forcing him to push back and drop. So I think it's interesting. Like I said, we talked about all these guys' salaries and all that stuff, and this is more just like, I think, a fun. So like interesting, like how this all is. I think Ron Harper might, if he shows a lot of improvement, could maybe jump Champagny. I think they're looking at that. I think Doughton's more of an immediate kind of piece, short termer kind of deal. So I don't know. It's interesting. I have no clue how they're playing Hughes Juancho, to be honest. He could play any forward position. I don't really know what they're playing with him fully is. So it could be really interesting how that kind of lineup works. We have all of them kind of shooting three. Not the best three yet, but I think they'll all work on it. Banton shooting three, Champagny shooting three, Precious shooting three, Scotty Barnes working on his three, and then Koloko working on his three. So we'd have like a 5 out, all length, all switchable defense kind of lineup with a bunch of playmakers, a bunch of guys with different abilities that are kind of elite. Like Delano's Banton to push the ball up the court is elite. Barnes' vision and playmaking is elite. Precious can really, his effort is just elite. The man just battles, and his strength is elite, I think. And then Koloko, obviously, his length and his speed's elite. And then Champagny's rebounding's elite. I think rebounding at that guard position could be a really, really interesting piece to what we have on this team as for winning that possession battle, crashing the boards, three guys going hard, Champagny, Koloko, and Barnes all looking like they can offensive rebound like beasts. I think that would be an impressive lineup because even if you can't shoot, we have three guys in the paint hungry for the rebound, right? So I think that lineup could actually show some interesting numbers. But I dropped a little a sneak hint before, but I'm not going to elaborate right now. You're going to have to wait to see what that's all about. It's going to be an interesting video. I think it's going to be a very deep, kind of informative video. So stay tuned for that. See you guys. Have a good one.